Welcome back to Global News, your go-to source for the biggest updates from the USA and across the globe. Today, we are counting down the most impactful news stories you need to know right now. Before we jump in, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss a world update. Let's get started with number 10.
Today, first news. Strategic realities challenge Trump's proclamation of victory. President Donald Trump has declared a total and complete victory following a ceasefire with Iran, framing the development as a monumental step toward a golden age. While the administration highlights China's role and promises that enriched uranium will be handled, the lack of specific details regarding enforcement or nuclear dismantlement has raised significant skepticism. The announcement followed a dramatic ultimatum where the president threatened the destruction of a civilization, a rhetorical escalation many view as a pressure tactic, rather than a structured breakthrough. Tehran, meanwhile, projects the outcome as favorable to its own interests. Without clarity on military rollbacks or regime concessions, the narrative of a unilateral American triumph remains difficult to justify amid the complex strategic realities. Next news. Vikram Misri strengthens strategic and defense ties during high-level Washington meetings. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri conducted a series of high-level meetings in Washington to advance India-US strategic and economic cooperation. In discussions at the U.S. Department of Commerce with Undersecretary Jeffrey Kessler and Undersecretary William Kimmett, talks focused on boosting bilateral trade and investment in emerging technologies and export control frameworks. At the Pentagon, Misri met with Undersecretary of War Elbridge Colby to discuss Indo-Pacific and West Asia developments, furthering the 2026 National Defense Strategy. Additionally, a meeting with Undersecretary Mike Duffy focused on deepening defense industrial and supply chain linkages. These interactions reflect a productive exchange on operational modalities, reinforcing the ambitious goals of the major defense partnership and sustaining the momentum of bilateral security exchanges. Next news. President Pezeshkian joins nationwide commemoration as Iran marks 40 days since the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. President Masoud Pezeshkian joined vast crowds at Tehran's Republic Square on Thursday to observe the 40th day since the death of former Supreme Leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. Massive mourning processions took place across Iran, with participants marching to the site where the leader was killed during U.S.-Israeli strikes on February 28. These ceremonies also honored senior military officials and over 170 schoolchildren killed in Manab during the hostilities. The commemorations coincide with a Pakistan-brokered 14-day ceasefire, recently confirmed by the Supreme National Security Council. The IRGC issued a statement, asserting that the late leader's philosophy of resistance remains a comprehensive system for governing the country. Events are expected to continue nationwide until nightfall. Next news. Axis of evasion. Russia, China, and Iran forge sanctions-proof military supply chain. A new analysis reveals that Russia, China, and Iran have established an interlocking, self-sustaining military supply chain that bypasses Western financial systems. This network moves drone components and missile precursors across 3 continents via shadow shipping and alternative payments. While Russia remains the primary supplier for Iran's S-300 air defense, the relationship has evolved into a circular production loop. Notably, Iran's Shahed drones are now mass-produced at Russia's Alabuga facility, with technology flowing back to Tehran. Relying on non-SWIFT transactions and Chinese intermediaries for semiconductors, the Axis has rendered traditional sanctions increasingly obsolete. This cooperation secures Iran's deterrent capabilities, maintaining its leverage over regional security and the vital Strait of Hormuz oil corridor. Next news. British pastor charged with manslaughter following fatal baptism ceremony. A UK-based pastor, 48-year-old Cheryl Bartley, has been charged with gross negligence manslaughter after a baptism ceremony turned fatal in October 2023. The victim, 61-year-old Robert Smith, drowned during the service conducted in a small garden pool at a private residence in Erdington, Birmingham. Smith, a grandfather of 7 and a longtime UK resident originally from Jamaica, had been a member of Life-Changing Ministries for 4 years. While the ceremony was being live-streamed on the church's Facebook page, the broadcast was abruptly terminated and the footage deleted during the incident. Despite the rapid response of emergency medics and the Midlands Air Ambulance, Smith was pronounced dead at the scene. The Crown Prosecution Service confirmed that criminal proceedings are now active, following a close investigation with the West Midlands Police. Next news. Italy declares emergency following major landslide on Adriatic transport corridor. The Italian government has officially declared a state of emergency after a massive landslide disrupted vital transport links along the Adriatic coast. During a visit to the affected region of Molise on Thursday, Infrastructure Minister Matteo Salvini pledged an initial €10 million for urgent repairs. The landslide, triggered by heavy rainfall in the town of Pitacciato, severed the A14 motorway and the primary rail line connecting Bologna to Taranto. While the disruption forced thousands of motorists onto lengthy detours and halted coastal rail services, officials report significant progress. Minister Salvini praised the miraculous speed of recovery efforts as motorway traffic partially resumed. Although a collapsed bridge will require months of reconstruction, rail services are expected to restart on Friday. Next news: Trump demands NATO commitment to secure Strait of Hormuz within days. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has informed allies that U.S. President Donald Trump expects concrete commitments to secure the Strait of Hormuz within the coming days. This follows a high-stakes meeting in Washington on Wednesday, occurring amidst significant friction over the conflict in Iran. President Trump has recently intensified his criticism of the alliance, labeling it a paper tiger and threatening a potential U.S. withdrawal due to what he perceives as inadequate support from European allies. Diplomats indicate that while NATO will not take a direct role in the war, member states are exploring diplomatic and military plans to safeguard the vital waterway. Although a 2-week ceasefire is currently in place, tensions remain high as allies balance American urgency with the necessity of stable negotiations with Iran. Next news: Israeli bombardment of Lebanon threatens fragile regional peace accord. A massive wave of Israeli airstrikes across Lebanon on Wednesday has cast a shadow over the precarious truce involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. The Lebanese Civil Defense reports over 250 fatalities and 1,000 injuries after more than 100 targets were struck in a 10-minute window, an assault witnesses described as a, quote, ring of fire. This escalation occurs at a critical juncture for the Pakistan-brokered peace deal, which seeks to address global concerns, including nuclear capabilities and the security of the Strait of Hormuz. The intensity of the conflict has raised alarms among Gulf diplomats regarding the potential for wider regional involvement. With global energy supplies and transport hubs at risk, the continued fighting jeopardizes the already complex negotiations. Experts warn that the widening theater of war, coupled with heightened rhetoric, makes achieving a lasting resolution increasingly difficult, while the future of international security remains in the balance. Next news: Trump utilizes escalatory rhetoric and military threats as diplomatic tools. U.S. President Donald Trump has intensified his use of aggressive rhetoric and military coercion as primary instruments of foreign policy, targeting both adversaries and traditional allies. Amidst a volatile conflict with Iran, the president issued a series of stark warnings on Truth Social, at one point declaring that an entire civilization could face obliteration if American directives were not met. These statements followed a fragile 2-week ceasefire agreement and were accompanied by threats to dismantle Iranian public infrastructure, including power plants and bridges, to force the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The administration's confrontational stance has also extended to NATO, with the president deploying threats of tariffs and withdrawal to ensure compliance with Washington's regional policies. During a recent meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Trump highlighted the severity of U.S. military strikes, claiming that much of Iran's senior leadership had been neutralized. By framing these actions as necessary to end decades of extortion and corruption, the president continues to leverage the threat of total military supremacy to achieve rapid geopolitical objectives on the global stage. Next news: Italy declares emergency following major landslide on Adriatic transport corridor. The Italian government has officially declared a state of emergency after a massive landslide disrupted vital transport links along the Adriatic coast. During a visit to the affected region of Molise on Thursday, Infrastructure Minister Matteo Salvini pledged an initial €10 million for urgent repairs. The landslide, triggered by heavy rainfall in the town of Pitacciato, severed the A14 motorway and the primary rail line connecting Bologna to Taranto. While the disruption forced thousands of motorists onto lengthy detours and halted coastal rail services, officials report significant progress. Minister Salvini praised the miraculous speed of recovery efforts as motorway traffic partially resumed. Although a collapsed bridge will require months of reconstruction, rail services are expected to restart on Friday.